Fujin is Anji's most iconic move. It is the beginner Anji's greatest love, and to those fighting against it, their greatest frustration. Anji storms forward with an imposing hitbox and uses its follow-ups to overwhelm his opponent's mental stack with loads, overheads, throws, and projectiles. But below the surface, Fujin has a number of glaring flaws that makes its mix-up crumble against players with superior matchup knowledge. Today, we'll break down how Fujin works, look at each of its follow-ups, and figure out how to reliably turn blocking Fujin into a guessing game whose scales are tilted far out of favor for Anji. We'll analyze what players commonly misunderstand about its properties, and finally, pull the curtain away from the inconspicuous twirl that obscures Fujin's true mix-up. This is Millennium, and this is my breakdown of Fujin, the imposter. Fujin is a relatively slow mid that travels about a quarter of the screen horizontally. On normal hit, Fujin guarantees a Nagiha follow-up, and on counter hit, Anji can use the K follow-up to do a close S combo. Despite the way the animation looks, the hitbox only actually extends from the ground to around Anji's head, making it very prone to aerial attacks. Every character can punish Anji hard if Fujin is blocked without any follow-ups, and its nearly 30 frames of recovery also make it dangerous to whiff. It is even punishable on hit by almost all far S's. Thankfully, Fujin has 4 follow-ups, and they can all be performed not only on block, but also on whiff. It is very rare that Anji will perform Fujin on its own without any of its follow-ups due to how unsafe it is. Fujin can also be car cancelled. That is, we can perform any of the follow-ups early by interrupting Fujin before it becomes active. This makes its usage less predictable and extends the range of the follow-ups at the cost of making the overall startup longer. In this video, I'll be discussing Fujin's follow-ups with respect to using them after Fujin connects. I'll save applications of car-cancelled Fujin for another time. Shin Ichi Shishiki, the P follow-up, is commonly just called fan toss or fan throw. Anji does not actually throw a projectile. This attack only creates a hitbox as it reaches the ground, not during mid-air. The frame advantage on hit changes due to its long active time, but from the regular distance, it's not usually possible to combo from it. On block, Anji is left at a slight frame advantage, meaning we can use it to continue some limited pressure if we already predict the opponent will be defensive. Fujin K, or Isokutobi, is also commonly known as hop. While this doesn't do any damage, the most common use of hop is to get into range for a throw. Throws have a better risk-reward profile than strikes, and throws provide hard knockdowns, so this is quite a strong offensive option from Fujin. Nagiha, the S follow-up, is the most common one. It's a true block string from Fujin if undelayed, and is a low that grants a soft knockdown on hit. At -7 on block with some pushback, it's generally safe, but some characters can get sizable punishes even at the mid-screen if it isn't spaced impeccably. Nagiha is also useful when delayed, and with the right timing, it can catch jumping, backdashes, throws, or attempts to interrupt any of Fujin's other follow-ups. Delayed Nagiha only loses to invincible reversals. This combination of safety and options coverage make Nagiha the best way to condition blocking after Fujin. Rin, the H follow-up, is an overhead. It is technically reactable, both due to its 25 frame startup and its bright yellow flash. Through a small combo, it can convert into a hard knockdown off of a normal hit. It is also quite useful in combos for wall break conversions. However, Rin is also very punishable on block, just like Fujin. It's easy to look at Fujin's follow-ups and think that there's a true mix-up. It has a low, it has an overhead, it has something to set up a throw, and it even has an option that's plus on block to continue pressure. But there are many ways to beat it, and worse, beat many of its follow-ups by doing the same thing. Mashing after Fujin with a button that has any kind of verticality will interrupt everything except Nagiha. For many characters, this can be accomplished with a single button. Alternatively, opponents can block low and then block high to take advantage of the sluggish startup of Fujin P, K, and Rin compared to Nagiha. Performing this block sequence with the correct timing will allow them to block every follow-up without even needing to spend the mental effort to react to anything. And if we delay Nagiha to such an extent that it lands at the same time as Rin in order to create a true mix-up, all we've done is make sure that every single Fujin follow-up is susceptible to being interrupted or counter-hit. It's important to realize that by the time the initial hit of Fujin is blocked, the situation is already out of Anji's favor. Attempting any mix-up beyond simply delaying Nagiha requires a huge amount of risk. So this begs the question, if there's no mix-up in Fujin's follow-ups, where is it? The mix-up isn't in the follow-ups. Fujin's true mix-up is whether it comes out at all. There's something I've neglected to mention. It's that you can charge Fujin. Charging Fujin adds a spin to the startup, granting it auto-guard properties, just like Suigetsu no Hakobi. But why is this important? It's because it's impossible to tell the difference between a charged Fujin and a spin during the startup. The opponent has to guess whether a Fujin is going to happen or not. The idea is simple. By scaring the opponent into freezing up upon seeing Fujin charge, we can take advantage of their hesitation to mix in spin on its own in order to close the distance for a throw. Dealing with this becomes even harder by cancelling them out of normals, or varying the amounts we charge spin and Fujin. Let's see how this works. Spin naturally has 3 points of weakness. It can be counter-hit out of its startup, it can be thrown during its animation, and it can be counter-hit out of its recovery. By creatively using the options mentioned before, we can find ways to cover all 3 of these. By cancelling into spin from a normal, Anji can inflict enough block stun to ensure the opponent can't move until the auto guard of the spin begins. Even a 2P, which has the lowest amount of block stun in the game, can prevent even a theoretical 1-frame attack from interrupting spin startup. In order to discourage targeting the end of the animation, we can simply hold down spin for longer. This will auto-guard opponents trying to time their attacks to hit the recovery of the shortest duration of spin. This same technique also works against opponents trying to target charged Fujin's vulnerability window between when the auto-guard ends and when Fujin actually begins. Preventing throws is a little more freeform. Spacing our normals well will cause immediate throw attempts to be counter-hit by Fujin. Savvier opponents will try to time their throws to land as we spin in. We can fake these players out by partially charging Fujin to start it up earlier. We could also charge spin, which closes distance at a different timing than charged Fujin does. Even defensive options like backdash and jumping can be clipped by varying Fujin's charge timing. This isn't to say that this is an undefendable mix-up. Far from it. Due to spin and charged Fujin's big counter-hit recovery windows, opponents making great hard reads will mean that we risk losing the round off of it. But if they make an incorrect read, or give up on actively trying to fight back, this is something that Anji can use to snowball around into a win. Thanks again for tuning in to another one of my videos. This mix-up is actually more nuanced than how I've described it, but I didn't want to turn this one into a guide on system mechanics, attack levels, and how block stun and recovery affect AutoGuard windows. If you're interested in something more in-depth like that, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll get to it one day. Otherwise, stay safe, happy, and healthy. Until next time, this was Millennium.